So my wireframe, my mock-up, or the logic for my quiz is starting to come together. I have a couple of different scenes. I have my loading screen, and my loading screen simply, waits a few seconds before it kicks us over to the first question. I'll change that function here in just a short bit. But now when we get to our question one scene, we're presented with some answers, right and wrong answers, and when I click on those, I want to be able to influence my score. And so what I need to do is I need to be able to define some logic for my wrong answer button. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I want to assign a change attribute function. Okay, and now the way that this is going to work is every action or behavior that we've assigned up to this point have been passive actions. Meaning that they're not requiring any input. This time around, we want to create some input so that when we click on this button, it executes this action. So in other words, it's not just its presence by being on stage that it runs this passive action. What I want to do is create a rule. And in the top right-hand corner, when we're inside of our actor looking at our behaviors window, we can create a rule. And a rule allows us to listen for user input. And so remember, we're on the wrong answer button. We're inside this wrong answer button, the red button. And this actor is going to receive an event. And its event is not going to be a mouse position. It's going to be a touch. So in other words, when we click it or we touch it, it's going to execute the action which is inside this container. And the action that I want to execute is change attribute. Right? Because we made a score attribute and we want to be able to change that. When we get the wrong answer, we want to be able to subtract from it. When we get the right answer, we want to be able to add to it. So we have this change attribute function. So now we got to go look for this attribute. So I'm going to click on the ellipse. It's a game level attribute, and the attribute is player score. So I'll double click on that. And we want to change this to, itself plus 10. So we want to take the current value of player one score and add 10 to it. And the way we'll do that is we'll click on this expression editor. We're going to click on this drop down menu and go find the player one score. And then after this variable, we're going to say plus, I'll get this right, plus 10, there we go. So I'm saying whatever the current value of player score is, we're going to change the current value of player score to the current value of player score plus 10, and we'll hit the check mark. Although I just realized that I'm in the wrong answer and I don't want to earn points for clicking on the wrong answer. I actually want to subtract points, so I'm going to change the plus sign to a minus sign, and I'll hit the check mark. Now I'll test this logic really quickly. I could go back to my question one scene, or I could just hit the preview button. So I'm inside scene one, and I'm rendering the value of player one score, and when I hit a red button, it's subtracting from player one score. So that's good. So if I were to ask a question here, and I choose the wrong answer, it's going to subtract from my score. So I'm right on track. Everything's working the way that I expect it to. I'm going to hit the back button and go back into my question one scene, and now I'm going to affect the logic for the correct answer. So I'm going to double click the correct answer. And just like I did with the red button, I'm going to create a rule. And the rule is that when the actor receives this event, it's not a mouse position, but it's a touch. And there's different kinds of events that could be received by this actor. I want a touch is pressed. In other words, when I press this button, or I click on that green button, it's going to execute this action. And the action that we want it to run is a change attribute, because we want it to change the score. So I'll click on the ellipse and I'll go find the score attribute, double click to load it, and I want to change it to the value of player score. This time we'll do plus 10. So in other words, we're operating off of a 10-point scale that when I get the correct answer, I earn 10 points. If I get the wrong answer, I subtract 10 points. Now you might be asking yourself, well, why don't you just earn 0 points for the wrong answer? Because eventually we're going to make this as a two-player game. And this whole process, we want this to be an iterative process of design. So in other words, we come up with the basic concept, we work out the wireframe and the logic, and we say, okay, this thing's functioning more or less the way that we want it, so let's layer some more functionality into it. So my basic concept here is that I want a quiz, So I want this splash screen to introduce my game, and maybe it won't be on a timer, but maybe it'll be a splash screen that says, when you're ready, hit the play button, and now it takes us to question 1. So now we're actively playing. And currently at this point I can test this logic. I'll hit the play button, and right now I should be able to get a right answer, and I earn 10 points for that, or I get a wrong answer. Okay, now obviously there's some holes or some logic that's yet to be accounted for, which means that not only do I want to subtract or add to my score, but then I want that score to be rendered, which is working, but then I want to go to the next scene, so I need to work out those issues. But before I do, I want to start thinking about this in terms of a 2-player game. And the concept for the 2-player game is going to require a little bit more information here. The mechanic that I want to function here is that 2 players are sitting in front of a computer, or maybe sitting around an iPad or some kind of tablet, and it's sitting on the table. And the idea is that we're going to present this question, and whichever player buzzes in first, they get the ability to answer the question, either earn the points or have points subtracted from their score. So there's there's a factor of time in the gameplay. You got to be kind of quick and nimble with your answers, but you don't want to buzz in just to take an attempt at the answer, because there is a penalty if you get the wrong answer. So that's the basic concept that I'm operating off of here. And in order to establish this logic, I need to start to build some kind of a logical switch that establishes which player is currently buzzed in. And we'll do that by developing a set of Boolean functions that determine who's actively logged in. And we'll do that in the next presentation.